I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner. Here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
A downtown Duluth street project is the latest effort to stabilize the city's infrastructure. Our nation as a whole is struggling to improve its aging framework.
Churches United in Ministry transitioned to a new leader this month, but its mission to help those in need remains unchanged.
And a Douglas County Chamber Youth Leadership Program celebrates a milestone this year. We'll tell you all about it.
All this and more coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Julie, a good lineup of our program tonight.
Yeah, it's a busy night here in the studio.
All right, so a lot to talk about. Let's get started.
All right, thank you, Denny. Welcome, everyone. Each year, the American Society of Civil Engineers publishes a report card on the status of the United States infrastructure system. And folks, our country is barely getting a passing grade. The engineers gave the nation's infrastructure a D+ rating this year, leaving plenty of room for improvement. So how is our region doing compared to the rest of the country? Joining us now is Craig Bursch with Meyer Borgman Johnson and a past president of the Duluth section of the ASCE. And Cindy Voight is the Duluth city engineer and vice president of the Duluth section of the ASCE. And thanks to both of you for coming in tonight. Cindy, this week the mayor talked about downtown Duluth's brick streets, the utility lines underneath it needing repair. What, in your opinion, are the biggest needs as you look at the infrastructure in Duluth?
That's an excellent question. Based on the infrastructure report card, I went through and rated our city priorities, and clearly our greatest need right now is our water distribution system. We just came out of winter, and we're still averaging over 100 water main breaks each winter. And that puts a lot of people out of water. It's extremely expensive, and those breaks are increasing on average, not decreasing. Mm-hmm. So that's our number one increase.
Now, the issues that Duluth is having with its water system, is that pretty typical for a community the age of Duluth, or is it unique here because of our weather or geography, anything like that?
Well, interestingly enough, the state of Minnesota,
excellent segue,
with public television, helped produce liquid assets. And that was put together because it's not a Duluth problem, it's a state of Minnesota problem. And as things have been getting older, people haven't putting the repair and maintenance costs towards keeping it up. And it's across the board in the nation.
What else might need immediate attention in our infrastructure?
Well, clearly the roads.
People can see that,
People can see that. The roads are, I gave the roads a D.
A D.
And the national rating was a D. We have, 300-400 miles of roads to maintain, but thankfully, road improvements, the mayor has emphasized that, and with his leadership, we've put 75 good roads back in the last 4 years, which was great. But we still have hundreds of miles left to go.
With today's high gasoline prices, I'm almost afraid to ask the question, should we have an increase in the state gas tax?
There's been an increase in perhaps not the last legislative session, but the one before, and that was one of the first increases in our gas tax in many, many years, if not decades. So that when you can get disparate groups like the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce to be in favor of a tax increase because it's needed to fund roadway improvements, then you know it's time.
Mm-hmm. Craig, when people talk about public infrastructure from a civil engineering standpoint, it's more than just roads, bridges, and water. Talk about some of the types of projects that civil engineers work on and why it should be important to our viewers.
Sure. there's the ones that you can see, a new Duluth Airport terminal, for instance, and a new runway at the airport. Aviation infrastructure is something that you can see. What you can't see, the out of sight, out of mind infrastructure, is the water distribution. I think everyone in this country takes it for granted that you go to your bathroom or your kitchen and you turn on the faucet and you get clean drinking water. However, there's hundreds, as Cindy said, there's hundreds of miles of infrastructure to make that possible, and people tend to take some of that for granted. And our society, American Society of Civil Engineers, has also published, in addition to the infrastructure report card, economic failure to act studies, which show just how much money is lost by consumers, shippers, with suppliers, manufacturers. When your truck is sitting in traffic because there's not enough lanes of highway, somebody's paying for that truck to sit there.
It's true. There's a economic cost to poor infrastructure, and we used to be a worldwide leader, and now we're not on the list anymore.
If Duluth could magically get all the money it wanted for its infrastructure, how many billions do you think we're talking about? Have you put pencil to paper?
I've never done that. It would be an interesting question. I'm always limited by what can we afford to have the residents and businesses help us with that infrastructure, and anything that I'm provided, we will instantly spend it within a couple of years because the needs are so great.
Nationally, the 10-year need to bring every grade up to a B is $3.6 trillion over a 10-year period. There's currently allocated between federal, state, local, private funding about $2 trillion. So the gap is $1.6 trillion over 10 years to bring every grade in our country up to a B, which is adequate for now standing. Right?
From a grading standpoint, if the nation got a D+, how would you rate our region's infrastructure?
Some areas better. Aviation, I think we're stronger than the D that the nation gets. We've been very fortunate here recently, and especially with new terminal, new runways, very good support for our 148th infrastructure for the Guard. Cindy will tell you that some of our local needs, especially in the city of Duluth, there's some grades that would be lower, certainly.
Right. One of the better grades that we have compared nationwide with the wastewater, specifically our wastewater collection. Everyone's heard about the consent decree that we had from the Department of Justice to prevent the sewer overflows into Lake Superior. Because of that, we feel that we've achieved a C, and we've essentially eliminated those overflows in the last 3 years thanks to the insight of the mayor and making that a priority also.
Have we learned any lessons from last June's flood? What has that done to our infrastructure? What have you learned?
So that was an event that was off the map, and there's hydrologists study that, and that's all they do, and they try to figure out what's an event that could occur once in 100 years, and that was like once in 500 years. We plan for one in 10 years. So if you think about what that meant, is those pipes were sized for something that occurred every 10 years, not every 500. So you can't pay for that and build something to events of that magnitude.
Are there still issues from the flood that are being discovered today?
Well, I think you can find roads on your way up to Mount Royal, find foods from my house that are still closed. So there's still going to be issues, I think, being undiscovered, sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cindy, Craig, for coming in and shedding some light on what the civil engineers do and the importance of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Good morning. How are you? Welcome to the tour. For Ron Kelly, the president of Lake Superior Paper Industries, this was a very big day. After months of fine-tuning and debugging, his brand spanking new Super Calendar paper-making plant was running at 65% capacity and officially open for business. As groups of prospective customers and area business people toured the facility, the future of LSPI looked very bright.
The market is stronger, and we did start up the mill in November, and all of the production that we expected to make this year was already sold at that time. We've produced about 20% more than that so far, and even that's been absorbed by the market.
Right now, LSPI has 81 customers, but there are a total of 500 companies that could wind up buying super calendar paper from Duluth. LSPI is the biggest industrial development Duluth has seen since the turn of the century. So far, it has had a $100 million impact on the area's economy, an impact that is expected to grow right along with Duluth's new industry. John Schottel, KDLH News.
"40 years ago, 10 Central Hillside churches in Duluth pooled their resources to assist low-income people. Today, CHUM is governed by 39 Duluth congregations and continues its mission. Now, recently there was a change at the top of CHUM, and a capital campaign was launched to construct a new 6-unit emergency family shelter. Joining us now to talk about this and more is Jim Soderberg, recently retired CHUM Executive Director, and Lee Stuart is the new Executive Director at CHUM. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. 16 years at the helm, a long time. Are we making some inroads, Jim, in the problem of homelessness in this community?
Well, I think we are, and the project that we're talking about tonight is just a major step in that direction. I think we've seen some real accomplishments. The need is still great.
What is that project?
Well, it's a very large project, of which the family shelter is one part of, but we're building 44 units of permanent supportive housing for families that have a history of chronic homelessness. And we're doing that in partnership with One Roof Construction, One Roof Housing, and Center City Housing. So it's a broad coalition.
Yeah.
The Housing and Redevelopment is involved in the city of Duluth. So there's a lot of the community coming together.
Lee, you're taking over at a critical time, really, in this city.
That's right, and formerly I was also working to help make that project happen,
That's
so
right.
I'm really familiar with it. And I think one of the things that's exciting to me is last year about 75 families came through CHUM's homeless shelters. When you think about a building that's going to house 50 of Duluth families that have, and to be in the 44 units, it's people who have had repeated episodes of homelessness or long-term homelessness, and the shelter, of course, is people in an emergency situation. So 50 families is a significant treatment and service for Duluth's most vulnerable families.
Parents with kids.
Parents with kids, and I think that's one of the progresses we are making in homelessness. Instead of focusing so much on either individuals or something, making people do something before they're eligible for housing first, and harm reduction, and particularly focus on the children. So that's one of the things that I'm really stressing in the capital campaign.
Jim, for people who may not be familiar with the broad spectrum of programs that CHUM oversees these days, kind of give us a primer on that.
Well, it is very broad. We do basic services, which means we have food shelves. The Duluth Emergency Food Shelf is operated by CHUM at 2 different sites, 3 sites now actually. We have the family shelter program and the congregate shelter, which has 46 beds of shelter for single homeless adults. But more and more and increasingly we're putting a focus on stabilizing families and individuals to help them stabilize and become more self-sufficient. And then we do a lot of systems work in the community, advocacy, public policies that really benefit our service population. And we mobilize our broader community, especially our congregational base, in these efforts.
And if I might add, just one of the things that I didn't even know CHUM did until I became executive director was the street outreach work. And every month, we really have a stellar street outreach worker, Deb Holman. She meets with the police and has a list of people who they consider high contact. And many of these people are mentally ill, many are living outside, some have chemical dependency. And she has a unique talent of building relationships with them. We begin to provide basic services for them and eventually stabilize. And it's really inspiring. You can look month, list month after month, and you see people's names drop off. And it's not perfect, but all of us who've tried anything know it takes a couple starts to get traction.
Lee, you've got a great platform here. How can the public help?
We really need Duluth support for the capital campaign. We're raising $1.5 million for the family shelter. That's partly for construction and partly for endowing the operations of that. And one of the things I'd really like Duluth families to consider is making it a family project to endow an apartment. So teaming up your family, aunts, uncles across generations, brothers, sibs, and maybe your neighbor's family to make a contribution of something on the order of $25,000 over 3 years. And then that will extend your family to include one of Duluth's most vulnerable families. And looking back on that, you can see that you helped end homelessness for kindergartners in Duluth. Wow. And I think that'd make you really, really proud. So I'm serious about that.
CHUM is supported by area congregations. How engaged are those congregations actually in the work that you do, or is it primarily a funder sort of a relationship?
Well, initially, 16 years ago, that's what I saw, is it was that financial support, but increasingly, CHUM has become a vehicle for them to do ministry in the broader community, to live out their faith in community. And that's what we're seeing more and more of a focus. And we're seeing programs now that are really being generated by congregational members coming together and saying, we have an idea, we want to do this. Mm-hmm. And that's so exciting. It's the community really coming together and in the process forming relationships with the service population. So it isn't this vertical relationship with people who are receiving services, but actually a real relationship.
Sure. And I really think that CHUM gives Duluth an opportunity to be the city that we talk about. The mayor says city on a hill. I like to think about city of firm purpose. And a city of a hill people look to for inspiration. City of firm purpose means we're committed to justice. So I'd like the idea of everybody looking at Duluth for our commitment to social justice. And CHUM is a path to do that.
Can you give us some idea of what other initiatives are being brought out by CHUM to help people in the community?
Well, in addition to the ones that Jim was talking about, is the constant engagement of how do we, for example, our CHUM Center, which is basically the living room for people.
It's a busy place.
It's a busy place. And people come because there's a sense of community there. It's a place where they can use a computer, get their mail, have a shower, talk to other people, play some games, be social, and just how to do that. And many of these people may not be welcome at other community centers, so how can we do that really well?
Mm-hmm. Jim, you've been a face of CHUM for so many years. What are you going to do now in retirement? Are you still going to remain engaged in the community?
Oh, of course, yes, yeah. And this summer I'm going to be gardening. I'm going to back off and get healthier and do some gardening, and I'm going to get a dog and things I've been putting off for a while.
Time to do it.
Yeah, okay. But certainly be engaged.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jim, Lee, thank you so much. All the best with the projects.
Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you.
The Youth Leadership Program of the Superior Douglas County Chamber of Commerce will celebrate a milestone Monday. That night will mark the 10th annual Excellence in Education Awards ceremony for the program that began with a comment made by a Superior Senior High School student. Since then, a 2-year program for high school juniors and seniors has helped develop young leaders in the community. Joining us to talk about the program is Dave Miner, President and CEO of the Chamber, and Mike Matejka is an assistant principal at Superior Senior High School and the school's liaison to the Chamber program. And thanks to both of you for coming in tonight.
You're welcome.
Dave, the program began when someone asked you a question, I understand?
Well, I was talking up at a high school class about fundraising and asking them if they understood the correlation. When you go to the businesses and ask them for a donation to your cause, are you visiting those businesses and spending money with them and getting them to understand that correlation? And this young lady with all the love in her heart looked at me and said, but Mr. Miner, isn't it the responsibility of the business community to support us? and not understanding they needed to support each other. And that's really what set us on this road of trying to understand the chamber needed to do a better job of educating our high school students. They belong to our community as well. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street.
So Mike, how do high school students get involved in the program?
They're made aware of the program through different activities that happen at the high school, a career fair in their sophomore year, and some other promotional events that occur with it. And then they are either encouraged by a teacher to apply for this, or they select themselves. That sounds interesting. I'd like to be part of it. And then there's an application process.
Is there a limited number of students that can participate each year?
There's no real magical number, but we know that once we reach that 50-ish, then we need to be careful.
So when they join the program, what do they do? What happens?
Their junior year, well, actually we'll start on Sunday. Their sophomore year, we get together with the whole group, the new group coming in, the juniors, and then the seniors as they're leaving, and we do some wonderful team building and trust and working together activities to sort of kickstart this.
It's really a fun day because the seniors that are leaving plan the whole day. So it's their way to kind of leave the program, and you see this competition that they want to make it better than when they came in. And it's the only one day where all three groups really are together. And it's really a fun process, but the whole junior year is really a classroom in the community. So they'll spend a day touring Essentia Healthcare and spend all day there talking with doctors and nurses and x-ray technicians, and they spend a full day with the police and fire departments and a full day learning about economic development, what makes our community tick. But one of for them, the most educational days and the fun days is when we take them on tours of what I call the hidden businesses. Charter Films, Exodus, Genesis, Calumet, Enbridge. They hear these names, but they really don't know what they are. But all of a sudden they get inside and they get to see what's going on. That's what this is all about, is getting them educated.
So 10 years after its inception, are you finding now more and more businesses with open arms?
Definitely, we really are. We've not come across anybody yet who said, no, we can't take you. One of the things that we do is we break the kids into smaller groups. So we start with that 50, but we break them into 3 simultaneously groups, which are doing the same thing all year long. So when we go to that business, we're talking 12, 15 kids at most. And the businesses really love them because they're starting to see that payback. This is starting to come full circle in the sense that when we look at our first 4 classes that are now out of college, 62% of them are going to be employed in the Twin Ports by the end of this year. So they either have jobs or they're going to have jobs lined up ready to go. So those businesses who invested in the beginning now see those kids coming back being part of our community.
Good investment.
It's another wonderful win, just to add to that, with the students really realizing with touring these businesses and being part of our community, they don't have to leave the area to have a wonderful career and opportunity in their life.
Mike, how does what the students learn in this leadership program complement what they're being taught in the classrooms?
It does complement very well. The leadership program is talking about some of the real life skills that students are going to need to communicate with people clearly, to ask appropriately, with that businesses, and go back and give to them as they're giving to you, those skills. And then the reality of the classroom is that public speaking, making their oral reports, leading in decision making at the school, where there's a chance to do something maybe not so good as kids sometimes do, or to be the leader. And we're hoping that our students are choosing, we will be leaders. We'll say no to that. We won't participate in bullying. We won't, we'll be a quality citizen.
It's at least a 2-year commitment by the students. What's the major thing that they're learning in this 2-year commitment with area business people?
They're really learning about our community. They're understanding that they are part of that community. And again, what we try to tell them is everything they learn is transferable. Whatever they take from this program, whatever community they go to, those things are there. Whether it's the businesses or the United Way, the Salvation Armies, all those things, get engaged in that community. And that's what's fun about hearing back from these kids, as we've been talking about the anniversary on Monday night, is, Mr. Miner, thank you to all of you who've done these things, and I'm using what you've taught me, and I'm seeing where the connections are. That's where the fulfillment really comes from, is that they see that all being tied together.
Mike, parents must be pleased.
Yes, they are. They support the program. They encourage their kids to get involved. They're very pleased.
Anything that you learn as an adult, as a business person, as someone who's involved with the chamber, from this program? It's designed to teach them, but any lessons for you?
Absolutely. Well, not only for us, but our community. As I said, these kids learn about these businesses. What happens is they go home and start talking to mom and dad. Now I get the phone calls. Dave, what is this company that makes this big weather balloon for NASA and it's flying over the earth? Yes, we have this business. It's called Charter Films, and this is what it does. So there are a lot of side benefits that have happened from this program that we never planned on. But it's just the engagement with kids. It's the one time a month I know I'm going to have a lot of fun because they really want to learn what's going on.
Yeah.
And can anybody attend this ceremony on Monday?
It is open to the community. It'll be at the Superior Middle School. It'll start at 5:30. The reception starts at 6 and the program will start at 7. And our hope is to fill that to capacity with over 1,000 people.
Wow.
All right. Well, Dave, Mike, thank you so much for coming in. Sounds like a great program.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Time now for a look at the week's top business stories from Business North. Fairview Range in Hibbing and Dr. Bridget Sundell of Virginia have partnered in an agreement to build an outpatient surgery center. The Northwood Surgery Center in Virginia will provide same-day surgical care in multiple specialties. It will be constructed on Bailey's Lake, adjacent to the new Sundell Eye Clinic. Groundbreaking is anticipated sometime this fall, with completion expected in 2014.
Downtown Duluth's iconic bricked streets have reached the end of their lifespan and need to be replaced, Mayor Don Ness said on Wednesday. Now, as we talked about earlier in the program, equally problematic are the century-old utilities beneath the brickwork, which also need to be upgraded. Now, in some ways, the two problems are related, with recent winter water line ruptures causing streets to heave and bricks to crack. Work will occur in 2 phases. Prior to Grandma's Marathon on June 22nd, driving lane bricks on Superior Street from Lake Avenue to 5th Avenue West will be removed and replaced by smooth blacktop. For the long term, the city will seek public input to establish a downtown vision, followed by Superior Street reconstruction, beginning about 2015.
State Highway 13 has become Wisconsin's latest scenic byway, culminating a 37-year effort. The 70-mile stretch of Lake Superior Byway runs from the town of Barksdale along the south shore to the town of Cloverland. It's the 4th scenic byway in the state. The designation was first suggested in 1977 by current Bayfield Mayor Larry McDonald as part of the Wisconsin Coastal Management Program. Sponsors intend to seek funding for initiatives such as informational kiosks along the route. And for more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Well, if you have a comment on this week's program, now's the time to call. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to Almanac North at WDSE.org and visit the WDSE website for the latest news and information from the station, a program schedule, and more. Little something for everyone on tonight's program, Julie.
Yeah, and it goes so fast when we have 3 segments.
It does.
Good information tonight.
Okay, thanks. For Julie and the crew at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.